Welcome to the very first Obviously Sports podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, along with my son,
Nathan.
and we're here to talk about sports from A to Z. Things from basketball to football, his favorite sport, to wrestling. Some people call it sports entertainment. I still call it wrestling because that's what I grew up on. And today is our first official podcast. I'm very thankful to my son being a pest and making me just go ahead and rip the band-aid off and let's just go ahead and do it. So today we're going to be talking about the NBA, and we're going to talk about some of the off-season moves, including free agent signings and trades. Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, Marcus Smart, even Derrick Rose. So here's what you guys need to know about me. I am from Chicago originally. Okay, Nathan, let's start with the NBA. We know last year, in the middle of the season, before the trading deadline, Phoenix made a big move to get Kevin Durant. First off, tell me, what did you think about that trade? And did you think Phoenix was going to be a shoe-in to go to the finals? What did you think?
I thought it was a great move for Phoenix. They didn't lose too much in that regard. They lost a lot of
That's
depth,
okay.
but I felt like it was a good move because Chris Paul was digressing, and so they wanted to try to get one last run out of him and just see what they all could have done. I think it was a very weak move for Kevin Durant to leave Brooklyn like that, considering all that he does to get teams together. Like he got Brooklyn. He went to Brooklyn out of Golden State. He gets
hmm
Kyrie. He
hmm
gets James Harden.
hmm
Then when that doesn't work out, he leaves them in shambles with no picks to go to the Suns. He did the same thing with the Warriors, left them after going to a super team. It's just what he's known for.
Okay, so it seems like to me that you have a little bit of a, I'm not going to say beef, but an irritation. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
With Kevin Durant and how he operates. I think a lot of people have an irritation with him. Kevin Durant has an appearance of being thin skinned. You know, anytime a multi-millionaire superstar athlete wants to go back and forth with mere fans, lets you know that people's opinions of him matter as much as he says he's a basketball god and all of these things. He's a human being at the end of the day, and sometimes people's opinions matters, but you can't argue with the facts. So what you said is correct. He did sign with Golden State after they had won 73 games. I don't think they were necessarily in dire need of another superstar, but I don't think you can argue that they would not have won those championships without Kevin Durant being on that team. I mean, he was the antidote to LeBron. However, he left Golden State. It seemed like he had a chip on his shoulder and he wanted to prove a point that he can drive his own bus, as Charles Barkley and Shaq have mentioned. Even though people have said he was driving the bus in Golden State, what do you think about that? Was he the main bus driver in Golden State?
I don't necessarily think so because when people talk about it, you have to think they were trying to do anything in their power to stop Steph Curry. The man was coming off an insane season where they
So are
won.
you saying the team was Curry's team?
Yeah,
Okay. But in the finals and in the playoff run, it was more of Durant's team.
the reason for that, you can see it in the regular season, everything. Teams, Steph Curry had just come off of an insane season winning unanimous MVP. Teams wanted to stop him. They weren't worried about Kevin Durant as much as they were Stephen Curry.
I don't know about that, saying they weren't worried about Kevin Durant.
They were, but they were trying to drive Curry double teams all the time, whereas Kevin Durant was just having one on ones. They were trying to stop Steph Curry first.
Here's what it feels like to me. It seems like Durant is the type of guy that when the stage gets bigger, he performs better. I feel like Durant is a big time player. I think Steph Curry is a big time player too, but Steph has had a history of not showing up in some playoff games, and Durant pushed him over the hump. Okay, but let's get off Golden State. Let's get back to Phoenix. So Phoenix decides to cut ties with Chris Paul. He ends up going to Washington first, and now he's with Golden State. But he went to Washington for Bradley Beal. So now Durant is in Phoenix with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and Aiton. I wouldn't necessarily put Aiton in the superstar category, but he is a former number one overall pick. I
He's
believe
not a bad player.
he's not a bad player. I don't think he's a max contract guy, but he's darn near close to being one. So now what people are saying is Durant is doing it all over again. He went to go to State, formed a super team. He went to Brooklyn, tried to form a super team with Harden and Kyrie. It didn't work out for a variety of reasons. I'm going to disagree with you on one thing with Durant with Brooklyn. He showed up. He played. You remember that series against Milwaukee? If it wasn't for his toe being on the 3-point line, they would have beaten them. 2022, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So Durant did his part. It's the guys that he decided to associate himself with in Brooklyn, who had all type of issues. Um, you can say what you want. You can say whether it was legitimate or not, if Harden was in shape or not. But at the end of the day, they did not show up for him. So he wanted out. They sent him to Phoenix. Now they have Bradley Beal. I also saw they recently got Ball. Tell me, what do you think about the Phoenix Suns? Is this a super team?
Um, I do think that this is a super team because you have three players who have averaged 30 plus points a game.
Okay, let's stop. What qualifies a super team?
To have three or more like all-star starter potential. Like Bradley Beal, I wouldn't necessarily say is an all-star starter, but he definitely has that potential
Because
when he was in DC, averaging 29, 30 points a game.
because here's the thing. Bradley Beal, what has he done in his NBA career to qualify him in the superstar category?
It really comes down to his stats because he doesn't win games because the team around him has been garbage. I think that he will perform really well with Phoenix. Um, but it's going to be hard for him to take a back seat and not be the number one guy, I think. But if you look at Bradley Beal's stats, the man has averaged like 35 and 5 for years and years and years.
Correct. But does adding him to Phoenix now equal super team?
Well, I mean, think about this.
Hmm.
You have somebody who is averaging 30 in Devin Booker.
Hmm.
You have someone that averages 30 in Kevin Durant.
Hmm.
And now you add one more 30 point per
Come on,
game player.
preacher.
That's 90 points per game between three players. If that doesn't qualify three superstars,
Okay, let me ask you this. Prior to Beal getting traded, was anyone referring to him as a superstar?
mhm,
I don't know about that.
they
I
were.
mean, he's a star.
He got
I
max contracts. Washington was trying their absolute best to keep him
He
there,
got
paying
max
him
contract
max.
because that's the best. No offense, no shade to Bradley Beal, but no one is banging down the door to go to Washington. So sometimes those lowly teams have to do more or pay more to be able to keep, star players.
Hmm.
Um, I don't view Bradley Beal as a superstar, but can I say that Phoenix has a stacked team? Maybe, because he was the star in Washington and now he's joining other stars. He's joining superstars. So it makes them a more stacked team. I don't know if I would say super team. And to be honest, if I'm Denver, if I'm the Lakers, I ain't afraid of them because what have they proven?
That's the thing. When you think about Kevin Durant, he's only ever made it to the finals with Stephen Curry, besides the 1 year in Oklahoma with Russell Westbrook and James Harden.
Okay, but that's a big
That was
accomplishment.
a good run.
And they were young, so that's a big accomplishment.
Yes, they got then swept by the Heat or lost in five. But the point being, Kevin Durant has been in the playoffs quite a lot, and people want to say that he carries his load and whatever. He shows up in big time games. That doesn't make a difference if he shows up in big time games. If him showing up in big time games, him having to be there is joining a team that's super good. For him to be in the position that he was to play Milwaukee,
Hmm.
he had James Harden and Kyrie Irving. He joined
But
Brooklyn.
they weren't even, if memory served me correct, those guys weren't even on the court.
James Harden wasn't on the court. Kyrie Irving was on the court as much as he was allowed to with the vaccination problems.
Let's move on to Boston. You found this move quite interesting. They made a move to get Porzingis, and then they also shipped out Marcus Smart. They sent him to the Grizzlies. So, talk to me about Porzingis. I'm still
Iffy.
ain't no iffy. I'm not a believer. Okay. First of all, let me just tell you why I'm not a believer. A lot of hype on this dude. That's not his fault. I think there's oftentimes hype on 7 foot plus European players. Okay. And we have seen over the years where it was Darko Milicic. Like sometimes these guys don't pan out. And Porzingis to me is more of a name than he is an actual player on the court because he's always hurt.
But Porzingis in Boston is not going to have to carry the same load that he has in other
He's never carried a load. He's never been that guy. He's always been a compliment. Who drafted him?
New York.
That was the only time that he was like
And then he
the
got
main
sent
person.
to Dallas when he was with Luca. He was solid on there.
Yeah, but they didn't get along for
But
some
then
reason.
but then he got hurt and then they sent him to Washington and he's been quiet ever since.
Okay, how's he going to help Boston? Let's get to that.
Boston is undersized. They have
That's
Robert Williams and Al Horford as their 4 and 5.
Mhm.
Anyways,
Mhm.
they are severely undersized, and Porzingis is 7'3".
But he's not a banker. He's not a rebounder. He's not a shot blocker. He's a tall,
He's a
slender.
shot blocker if you look at his stuff. He is a shot blocker, rebounder, and then he gets down in the paint and
You
just
must be talking about a
layups.
different Porzingis.
I'm talking about Porzingis when he's on the floor, not when he's in the.
I'm talking about that Porzingis too.
How often do
Okay,
you
that's
watch
what.
Porzingis and Washington? I watch highlights of Porzingis.
See, you watch highlights. I watch games, and I also do fantasy basketball.
You can't do off of fantasy basketball because the man gets hurt so often.
But what I'm saying is, I can see the stats. What was Porzingis' average last year?
I would say it's double digits easily.
We can just look it up to be sure.
Kristaps Porzingis stats. Kristaps Porzingis averaged 23, 8, and 2.
8 rebounds.
Yes.
Okay, how many games did he play? Let me take a guess before you tell me. I'm going to say he played 60 out of the 82 games.
65. But the year before, he only played 17.
And there lies the problem. So good luck, Boston. Now, for whatever reason, Boston tends to like these type of guys. Tall, white players that can play from the perimeter. Well, it's the truth. I mean, let's just be honest. Boston and Utah are the mecca for white players who can ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fact.
I want to.
But I don't know if Porzingis fits that motif or not, other than his name.
I want to pull up a quick stat. In 2015-16, when
Mhm.
Porzingis played 72 of the 82 games, only missed 10, he averaged 14 and 7. The year after that in New York, 18 and 7. Then 22 and 6. That was his best year in New York. And then he gets traded to Dallas, where he averages 20 and 9.5, and then 20 and 9.
Okay, Nathan.
Talking about he didn't carry a load.
Here's the thing. Oh, you didn't tell me how many games, because when you say how many games he played those seasons, then they give you a better idea of those averages. Because 82 versus 65, when you do averages,
He played 72 versus 65.
he's never played a complete season. So
It's difficult to play a complete season. To miss 0 games
I'm
at
sorry.
all.
How many games has Westbrook missed in the last? We don't need to look it up. I'm just saying there are some people who are injury prone. There are some people who are
And he can't control
more
that.
reliable and they gritty.
Russell Westbrook played 21 games this past season.
No, he played with 2 teams. Look up the Lakers and the Clippers.
With the Lakers, he played 52.
Hello.
With the Clippers, he played 21. That is a total of 73.
Closer to 82.
78, 65, 57. They're all around the same area.
Anyhow, okay. So you think Porzingis is going to help Boston because it gives them more size?
Yes, and he also doesn't have to carry as much of the load. He's always been a second or first option on a team. On the Celtics, he can be the third option. It goes Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, then Kristaps. Kristaps has always been a number 1 or a number 2. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're correct.
So it gives him more of a load off, and he
But
doesn't
what
have
are
to
they
put so much
paying this man to be
body
a
on
number
his
3
body.
option? But I guess that's today's going rate for the NBA. Anyhow, we can what?
In that trade, Marcus Smart.
That's what I was about to get at. I wouldn't be mad at them getting Porzingis as a third option, but getting rid of Marcus Smart in order to acquire him, to me, is a questionable move. And here's why I say this. Smart was like the heart and soul of Boston, even though he wasn't their best player. But when you talk about energy and intangibles and like getting the crowd into it, the green hair, I mean, that was Marcus Smart. And so it felt like
My bad.
it felt like he put his all to the team, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So how do you feel about Smart going to Memphis? How does it impact Boston, and how does it impact Memphis?
I feel like for Boston, it wasn't a bad move necessarily when you think about skill, like on the court, because they have Malcolm Brogdon to back him up, which would be a very good option instead. But I just feel like fan wise and like interaction, like when you talk about just that overall like tenacity and just being gritty and everything, they lost a lot. Because I don't think another player on that team besides Robert Williams is going to be out there diving for a ball
Horford
or
maybe, but he's older.
he's like 36,
He's
so
my
he's getting
age.
up there.
He ain't quite as old as me, but he up there.
He they
Horford
don't
played with my boy Joe King, and he's still going. And let's get
they
back on
don't have
Smart. Let's get back on him being with Memphis. Tell me how you see that playing out.
I see that being a very good trade for Memphis. They lost Tyus Jones, who wasn't that great of a contributor. I think Desmond Bain was way better. They lost Dylan Brooks.
They didn't
So be it.
lose Tyus; they traded him, so that was a strategic move they made.
No, I'm saying it's not going to be a big loss. Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones are gone from the team, and they brought in Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose. These are two very good veteran players that can help out with Ja and to help him get experience and to not be such an idiot when it comes. I love Ja. I have a jersey of him and everything, but he is stupid. The man is over here flashing guns at the Pacers. He's over here on Instagram Live shooting, showing people his blick. Who cares? Stop trying to act tough when you're not. And so I think that Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose are very good signings and very good trades to get him some more experienced veterans
To help
to try to help
keep
him
him up.
learn and try to help him just be smarter because
Mm.
he's suspended for a good amount of games. So he's going to have a lot of time to just talk with them
25. So I
and
think
just
that's the
learn.
main reason why the Grizzlies went after both of these guys is they didn't want a big drop off while he's suspended. And
Hmm.
like you said, they both can serve as mentors to him, especially Derrick Rose, who is from the hood, from Chicago,
And
South
he
Side.
also has similar play style. He can help him with everything. He can
That's
help him
true.
on telling him why not to get into the gang business or whatever. It can
And
help
maybe
him
help
play
him to
everything.
adjust his game because all of that stop and pivoting, it has a lot of wear and tear on your joints, your
And
ankles and your
jumping like
knees.
no care. He's gonna have to tell him about his knees and everything because John Morant gets up into the sky and does not care when he comes down. He will snap his knee in half.
Okay, so last year Memphis finished second. Okay, what do you see them finishing this year?
I see them finishing around the 5 or 6 seed.
Oh, all right. So, okay, you got them finishing five or
Five,
six. Do you? Okay,
five.
all right. Well, we'll see how these moves pan out. There's going to be more. There are other names that want to move and haven't happened yet. It seems like Harden wants out of Philly, um,
After he just signed his contract,
and after he pushed his way to get traded to that team, I don't understand this guy.
Harden is another problem.
Now that I agree
He
with you.
is a walking problem.
I agree.
Durant brings problems with him, like trying to sign players. Harden is a walking problem.
I won't disagree with that.